These probable cause documents, despite prosecutors' requests to keep them under wraps. We looked through them, and here's the big bombshell. A single unspent bullet connected Allen to those murders. Police found a .40 caliber round near the girls' bodies in 2017. In a search last month, investigators say they found a .40 caliber pistol inside Allen's home. A laboratory analysis determined that bullet came from Allen's weapon.
Investigators are relying on a single unspent bullet to put Richard Allen at the scene where Libby and Abby's bodies were found.
Steve, what did you find out?
Well, Dan, Aaliyah, I think people are generally aware when a bullet goes through a gun that it spins out of the barrel and picks up unique marks that police look for. Well, investigators linked Allen to this double murder investigation with a similar examination of an unfired round.
Defense attorney Guy Relford explains how that happens.
When the slide comes back like this, a round is extracted from the chamber with what's called an extractor, which is like a little claw that actually hooks on to this protruding rear edge of the cartridge, pulls it out, and then the ejector sort of kicks it out of the ejection port. So that claw, that extractor that grabs onto that little edge on the back of the cartridge can leave a little mark on the shell casing, even on an unspent round, through the process of extracting that unspent round out of the gun.
When the slide of the loaded chamber is pulled back, the bullet cartridge is ejected.
When one flies out, you may not see where it goes. And in a wooded area, it might be under leaves or brush or anything, right?
Very well could be.
Why would you unchamber a bullet that hasn't been fired?
I have no idea. I guess there could be a few reasons. One off the top of my head is if the primer, when struck by the firing pin, did not go off.
It could be a malfunction of the gun. It could be a misfire or other malfunction of the ammunition. It could be someone doing it intentionally and to induce fear, or some factors that we haven't thought of yet.
We're using snap caps, dummy rounds for safety and demonstration. The State Police Laboratory says that unfired bullet they found on the ground near the girls' bodies has markings on it, which they can match to Richard Allen's gun.
When a bullet is cycled in the chamber, microscopic scratches are made on the cartridge. The State Police Lab tested Allen's gun and concluded the bullet near the bodies came out of his pistol. The lab says the interpretation of identification is subjective in nature and based on relevant scientific research and the reporting examiner's training and experience.
This bullet is the strongest piece of evidence that the state has.
ABC 7 legal analyst Gil Sofer.
It's evidence, it's admissible in all likelihood, but it's not foolproof and it's subject to attack. And this case will rise or fall on the basis of that bullet.
The documents unsealed today show Allen was asked about his weapon and, quote, he spoke with investigators and stated that he never allowed anyone to use or borrow the Sig Sauer Model 226 firearm. That affidavit also says, when asked, Richard Allen, quote, did not have an explanation of why the bullet was found by the bodies.
It's not clear why they did not obtain a warrant and search his home and get a hold of the gun until now, essentially, until 5 years after the fact. What is clear is that they were looking far and wide for more evidence.
So an unspent bullet found within 2 feet of one of the girls' bodies had been allegedly cycled through the firearm owned by Mr. Allen, according to investigators, and the firearm was located by investigators at Mr. Allen's home on October 13th during the search. Now, when we went through this last night, the caveat, the warning that comes with saying this firearm cycled through that bullet, which was a Sig Sauer P226, which is a mass-produced firearm. Frankly, police officers love Sig Sauers, and they're mass-produced. And so the warning from the lab is that this analysis is subject to interpretation, and it's subjective, which means it's open to interpretation, okay? It's not 100% ironclad that firearm was the same one that was cycling through this unspent round that was found next to the girls.
The cause of the deaths haven't been released to the public.
It's not saying that they were shot by, the same kind of bullet that was matched to the same kind of.
Questions in the highly publicized case remain.
that the prosecution is going to have to deal with about why would that be on the ground at a crime scene between two bodies. And I think that's where a lot of the defense case is going to go, is trying to poke holes in that, saying that doesn't necessarily mean that this defendant committed these crimes.
Relford says the scientific evidence in the case is crucial, but can also be disputed.
It can be very much a battle of experts, and one expert can say, yes, absolutely, that round came out of that gun, and another expert can come in and say, no, you can't conclude that to what we call a reasonable degree of scientific certainty.
Great to have you here in the studio with us. We're going to bring in ABC News Chief Legal Analyst Dan Abrams and ABC News contributor, former FBI agent Brad Garrett. Let me start with you, Dan, and the bullet that was found on the scene. How ironclad is that?
When you're able to link back a bullet to a particular weapon, to an identifiable weapon, it's pretty powerful evidence. But I have to say that I still have a lot of questions here. I don't quite get why they interviewed him in 2017. He places himself at the scene, says he was there, he was walking there, generally resembles the descriptions they've been given, although that has changed over time. And only now in 2022 do they get that search warrant to go to his home. They find the weapon that he's had apparently since 2001. And you do wonder, well, why didn't they do that in 2017? We don't have all the answers yet, and we may get them.
And Brad, let's bring you in on this and more on that unspent bullet. What does that mean in terms of tying it to the gun? And then why didn't they test it until just this year?
So you have three possibilities. If he attempted to fire it, the firing pin would have hit the casing or the end of the bullet. That leaves a unique tool mark that can be matched up. Two other possibilities are the extractor. In other words, that's what throws the bullet out of a semi-automatic weapon. And the third possibility would be the magazine. I got one other thing to say about this gun. I don't understand, maybe they did this, maybe they didn't, as to why they didn't run all of the surrounding gun stores of 40 caliber type weapons, because I have solved a number of murders that way, because typically people who commit crimes like this have purchased a weapon legally, and they have purchased it someplace close to their residence.